Welcome back to the FC Books. Today we are strapping on our crampons, adjusting our Ruhmkorff coils, and preparing for a literal descent. We are plunging headfirst into Jules Verne's 1864 masterpiece, A Journey to the Center of the Earth.
And this novel is so much more than just a simple adventure story, isn't it? It's really a foundational piece of science fiction. What makes this deep dive so interesting, I think, is how Verne uses the most advanced and, often fiercely debated scientific sources of his time. We're talking geology, paleontology, even electrochemistry.
Right. He uses all of that to build a journey that feels, for his 19th century reader, both educational and just completely thrilling. So our mission for you, the learner, is to extract the absolute core of this massive epic. We're going to pull out the characters who drive this madness, the scientific battles they fight, and of course the huge discoveries that prove a 16th century alchemist was right all along.
Let's start with those characters then. The whole impossible mission rests on the shoulders of this core trio.
And our narrator, the person telling us the story, is Henry Lawson. He's the protagonist, the reluctant hero. He's Professor Hardwig's English nephew, and he's studying mineralogy in Hamburg under his German uncle.
Henry is really our anchor to reality, He's the voice of established science, the skeptic who knows the rules of physics. He's also got this deep academic love for Latin, which, as it turns out, becomes his single most valuable trait.
It really does, and he's grounded in the real world. He's engaged to Gretchen, which kind of roots him in the ordinary life he's about to leave behind. At first, he's terrified of the professor's plan. I mean, rightfully so. But once he commits, his enthusiasm just skyrockets.
It's like an avalanche. And the person who starts that avalanche is, of course, the engine of the entire narrative,
Right.
Professor Hardwig. He is the quintessential eccentric scientist, a man of just staggering intellectual force.
Oh, absolutely, and profoundly strange habits.
The description of him is so vivid. He's tall, thin, wiry, known for these large spectacles that magnify his already huge goggle eyes. And my favorite detail, his nose is described as being thin as a file. So magnetic, apparently, that a compass was rumored to suffer an N for nasal deviation in his presence.
That's brilliant. It tells you everything about his intensity and, well, his arrogance, right? He's a true polymath. He's skilled in philosophy, chemistry, geology. Basically an expert in everything that makes up the Earth.
But he has this major character quirk, and it's critical to the expedition. He's a miser of knowledge. He studies these huge ancient books just to keep the discovery secret, hoarding intellectual victories for himself.
It's almost a critique of that kind of isolated academic pursuit, isn't it?
I think so. And when he does speak in public, he stammers, often just replacing a complex technical name with a, quote, very powerful adjective. He's just pure intellectual combustion. And his classification method is just astounding. He was known to classify 600 different geological specimens by their weight, hardness, fusibility, sound, and even their taste and smell.
Wait, tasting 600 rocks? I mean, you have to admire the dedication, but tasting rocks, that's a level of genius that borders on just complete madness.
It really is. It grounds him as both brilliant and utterly bonkers. But he's also connected to the big scientific names of his day, like Sir Humphrey Davy. He's current, even while he's obsessed with the past.
Which brings us to the third essential character, though he's never physically there, Arnesak Newsom, the 16th century Icelandic alchemist. He's the ghost that sort of haunts the whole journey.
He's the one who kicks it all off. It starts in Hamburg with Hardwig in his library. He buys this old Icelandic chronicle, and hidden inside he finds a small slip of parchment.
The famous parchment. It's tiny, 5 inches by 3, covered in runic script. Hardwig immediately goes into analysis mode. He figures out it's runic, 132 letters, and he even calculates the consonant-to-vowel ratio.
Yeah, 79 to 53. And based on that ratio, he determines it must be a southern dialect, probably some kind of corrupted Latin. He works on it for days, refusing to eat or sleep, driving poor Henry to the brink of starvation.
And the breakthrough moment, the aha, it actually belongs to Henry. In a moment of exhaustion-fueled clarity, he realizes the cryptograph isn't just runic.
It's a palindrome. It's written backward.
Exactly. And when you read the Latin from right to left, you get the message. In sneffos joculis creterum, quem delibat umbras cartaris juli intra calendas descende audas viator et terrestre centrum attinges. Cot feci, Arnesak Newsom.
And the translation is just electrifying. Descend into the crater of Sneffels Jökull, which the shadow of Scartaris touches before the calends of July, O daring traveler, and you will reach the center of the earth. I did it. Arnesiknism.
I did it. That little postscript is everything, and Hardwig's response is immediate, just pure frenzy. He declares, "We start at once."
And this sparks the first great intellectual conflict of the whole novel, the core scientific debate. Hardwig is ready to go, but Henry, our voice of reason, argues against it using the accepted science of the 19th century.
And this is so important for you, the listener, to understand the stakes. Henry argues based on the known law of thermic increase. Heat increases by 1 degree Fahrenheit for every 70 feet you descend.
Which, if the calculations are correct, is completely devastating to the plant. A few leagues down, the Earth's core should be incandescent, molten. They'd be incinerated instantly. This was the prevailing theory.
But Hardwig, ever the iconoclast, just scoffs at it. He says, "I care nothing for theories." He claims modern experiments suggest otherwise, that the crust would have shattered if that kind of heat was so close. His whole philosophy is right there. The only way to learn is to go and see.
It's the ultimate statement of empirical data over untested assumption. But Henry's still not convinced. And this is where Gretchen, his fiancée, plays this crucial, unexpected role.
Yeah, he confesses his fears to her, kind of hoping she'll forbid him from going, but she does the exact opposite. She finds the idea magnificent, splendid, and worthy of a man like his uncle. Her approval is what finally pushes Henry over the edge from fear to excitement.
So Section 2 begins, the overland journey, and they do not waste a single second. They steam across the Great Belt to Copenhagen, and Hardwig immediately starts Henry's physical training.
Oh, the church steeple. Right. In Copenhagen, Hardwig orders Henry, who is terrified of heights, to climb the exterior spiral staircase of the Vorfalzers Kirk. Just a dizzying, horrible ordeal.
And Hardwig just calls it excellent practice for the profound abysses they'll soon face. It's just ruthless. No concern for Henry's comfort at all.
Not in the slightest. From there, they get on a schooner, the Valkyrie, and head for Reykjavik. They arrive on June 2nd, which is perfect timing to catch that Skartaris shadow.
In Reykjavik, they meet some local intellectuals, including a professor named M. Fridriksson. And he gives us fascinating little insight into Icelandic culture. He explains their distributed library system, where thousands of books circulate among farmers and fishermen in the countryside.
It's a great detail. It shows that this remote volcanic land is also a place of really profound learning. It's not just a wasteland.
Right, and they learn they need a guide to get to Sneffel's overland. Which brings us to the third, and you could argue the most important member of the party.
Hans.
Hans, the Eiderduck hunter. He is absolutely indispensable. He's the complete opposite of the explosive professor. He's described as phlegmatic, tranquil, completely stoic.
An economy of motion. His communication is just nods and shakes. He's pure practical competence. And their contract is such a great little detail. He agrees to $3 a week, paid every Saturday night, a condition he will strictly enforce, even, miles underground.
Absolutely. Then we get to the preparations, which are so meticulous and really add to the novel's believability. The supplies are divided into 4 groups: instruments, arms, tools, and provisions.
And the instruments are key. The centigrade thermometer, a manometer for air pressure, and most importantly, these 2 Ruhmkorff coils for electric light.
Let's talk about the Ruhmkorff coil for a second, because this is Verne showcasing cutting-edge 1860s tech. It uses an induction current to make gas luminous, producing this white continuous light without any combustion.
Which is the whole point.
Right.
It's safe. No open flame means it won't ignite the flammable gases they're expecting to find down there.
Exactly. And it can even burn underwater, which proves to be vital later on. Without this specific piece of technology, the whole journey is impossible.
They also pack rifles, 6-shooters, and something called fulminating gun cotton, an explosive more powerful than gunpowder, so you know that's going to come in handy.
For sure. And provisions are minimal, just concentrated meat and biscuit. Hardwig is so certain they'll find underground springs that the only liquid they bring is Schiedam gin. A bold move.
A very bold move. The overland journey begins, and it's just brutal. They travel on horseback across these desolate volcanic landscapes.
And Verne includes these really melancholic details: the strange Icelandic hospitality eating lichen soup, sleeping on hay, and that really sobering sight of the Spitelsk, the lepers who run away from them. It just heightens the sense of isolation.
It really does. They finally arrive at a little town called Stapi at the base of Sneffels. They meet the local rector, who is also a blacksmith, a fisherman, a carpenter. Basically anything but a clergyman. He's not very welcoming.
And Hardwig, ever impatient, just wants to start the ascent immediately. But Henry is filled with dread. He's worried that Sneffels isn't truly extinct, that they're about to descend into a boiler that could erupt at any moment.
Which brings us to Section 3, the ascent and the entrance. This is the point of no return.
During the climb, Hardwigg is doing geology on the fly, pointing out basaltic prisms, explaining how the landscape was formed by eruptive fire, not a continuous furnace, trying to reassure Henry.
But Henry's just focused on the physical struggle, the loose rock, the thin air, the cold. It's just a brutal climb.
And then they run into the mist tour, this terrifying waterspout of sand and pumice. And Hans, with his local knowledge, immediately shoves them higher up the rock face, saving their lives. It's the first of many times his instincts are essential.
They finally reach the summit. It's 5,000 feet up, late at night, and Henry sees the midnight sun, a moment of sublime beauty right before the terror begins.
And now, the moment of truth. The crater is huge, half a mile wide, with 3 distinct pits. Hardwigg explains the key from the cryptograph. The shadow of the peak Scartaris has to fall on the correct pit during the last days of June.
It's a lock that requires a chronological key. It's brilliant. After days of frustrating clouds, which Henry was secretly hoping for, the sun finally breaks through on June 28th. The shadow of Scartaris moves like a giant sundial hand.
And at precisely 12:00 p.m. or 13 minutes past 1 on their watches, because of the time difference, the shadow falls perfectly on the central opening. The moment is just electric. Hardwigg cries, "Forward, my friends, into the interior of the earth."
And Hans, with his usual profound brevity, just says, Forward. Now, before we follow our intrepid trio into the abyss, a quick note to our listeners who are enjoying this breakdown of a literary classic. If the deep dive helps you unlock books or subjects you've always wanted to explore, please remember to hit that subscribe button. And if you have a book or a topic you'd love us to unpack next, comment below or send us a request. We thrive on your curiosity.
Okay, so the real journey begins. And Hardwigg, true to form, solves the luggage problem by just tossing the non-fragile supplies over the edge. He just lets them fall into the abyss.
They begin the descent down this vertical chimney. Hardwigg is taking scientific readings the whole way. He notes when the barometer stops at 29 degrees, confirming they've reached sea level.
Right. From now on, they have to rely on the manometer for pressure, and they fire up the Ruhmkorff coils, bathing the abyss in artificial day. But the most important observation is the temperature.
This is the big one. After 7 hours of descending, the thermometer is only at 54 degrees Fahrenheit, an increase of only 9 degrees.
Which completely shatters that 1 degree per 70 feet rule. If that theory were true, the temperature should be well over the boiling point by now. This is Hardwigg's first massive scientific victory. Observation has just overruled established theory. He is absolutely delighted.
But his pride immediately leads to their first disaster. They reach a crossroads with 4 tunnels, and Hardwigg, instead of using evidence, chooses the eastern tunnel based on pure instinct.
And Henry, the geologist, knows it's a mistake.
Yeah.
The rock changes. They move away from the granite core into Silurian rock, schists, and then coal formations. They're going horizontally, maybe even slightly up.
But Hardwigg is too stubborn to admit he's wrong. He just pushes forward. And this leads to the crisis. They run out of water. All they have left is the Schiedam gin, which is just awful when you're dying of thirst.
It's here, though, that we see a different side of Hardwigg. Just as Henry is about to collapse, the professor offers him the very last mouthful of water he had saved for himself. It's an act of, profound compassion.
It really is. Henry, in his desperation, tries to get Hans to turn back, but Hans just points to the professor and says, "Master, his loyalty is absolute."
So Hardwigg makes this desperate plea. He uses the Columbus analogy, asking for one more day in the Western Tunnel, convinced they'll find springs in the granite.
Henry agrees.
And he's right. They enter the Western Tunnel, it starts descending, they find veins of copper and gold, and then Hans saves the day, again.
Relying on that incredible instinct, he hears a sound, a faint torrent behind the rock wall. He just calmly takes out his pickaxe and starts digging.
And the Hansbach spring erupts. The water is scalding 163 degrees, but it cools down, and it saves their lives. Henry names it the Hansbach in his honor.
They follow the stream, descending rapidly. They calculate they're now 21 miles deep and 150 miles horizontally from Sneffels. And they have this stunning realization. They are now traveling under the open Atlantic Ocean.
Which is terrifying enough. But then comes Henry's most psychologically scarring moment. He gets separated from the others. He gets ahead during a steep descent, and suddenly he's alone. In absolute darkness. His lamp is gone. His supplies are gone. He runs wildly, calling out until he collapses in a state of delirium.
His rescue is this amazing acoustic miracle. He wakes up and hears their voices. He realizes he's in what's known as a whispering gallery.
Yeah, it's a real phenomenon. The shape of the rock and the density of the air allows sound to travel for miles along the wall, almost like a current in a wire.
And Hardwig, ever the scientist, immediately uses the physics of it. He times the delay of the echo to calculate the distance between them, about a league and a half.
Just brilliant critical thinking under that kind of pressure. He tells Henry to slide down an incline, and Henry basically falls, riding a dislodged rock right into Hardwig's arms. It's an incredibly dramatic rescue.
But Henry is still delirious. He thinks he's back on the surface because he can hear wind and a sea. But Hardwig tells him the truth. They found the Central Sea.
And this launches us into Section 4, the Central Sea and Primeval Life, an entire impossible ecosystem miles beneath the Earth's crust.
The environment is it's magnificent. It violates every known law of science. This vast, limitless ocean, but it's illuminated. There's light.
But not from a sun. It's lit by an electric aurora borealis, a constant flickering white light with no heat. Above them are heavy clouds rolling along a granite vault.
And the ocean even has tides, which is just mind-boggling. The landscape around it is a forest of gigantic, colorless mushrooms, lycopods 100 feet high, ferns as tall as pine trees.
It's an entire Carboniferous era ecology, but alive and without color because there's no sunlight.
Yeah.
And the beach. The beach is covered in bones.
Mastodons, Dinotherium, fossils from animals that fell down here through cracks in the earth over millennia. Hans, being Hans, immediately gets to work. He builds a sturdy raft out of mineralized fossil wood they find on the shore. Before they leave, Henry names the spot Port Gretchen.
I love that little touch. They set sail, and the dense atmosphere pushes their little raft at an incredible speed. And it's Henry's decision to go fishing that leads to the next big discovery.
Right, Hans catches a fish. It's a Pterectus, an extinct fish from the Devonian period, which is amazing enough.
But the truly critical detail is that the fish is completely blind. It has no organs for sight at all. They catch more, and they're all the same. It's a perfect example of adaptation to a world without light.
It's pure evolutionary theory in action. But this discovery is followed by the true spectacle. After Henry has this weird, hallucinatory dream, they witness the terrific Saurian combat.
A literal fight between two primeval sea monsters. On one side, an ichthyosaurus 100 feet long with the head of a lizard and the teeth of a crocodile.
And on the other, a plesiosaurus, like a serpent with a turtle shell and a 30-foot-long neck. The fight is brutal. It goes on for an hour, raising these huge mountains of water. Finally, the ichthyosaurus wins, and they're left floating in the aftermath of this prehistoric battle.
Just when you think it can't get any more intense, the environment itself turns on them. The atmosphere becomes saturated with electricity.
A huge storm breaks. Lightning, thunder, and even globular lightning, a literal ball of fire runs across the raft, magnetizing all their iron tools. It's terrifying.
And in the distance, Henry thinks he sees another monster, but Hans corrects him. It's an island, a home, with a geyser shooting water into the air. They land there just as the storm gets worse.
And the storm drives their raft against the rocks. They're shipwrecked. When they come to Hardwig calculates they've been below 900 leagues, all the way across the sea, probably under Germany.
And here comes the weirdest mystery of the journey. Henry checks the compass, and the needle is completely reversed. It's pointing north, but they know the shore is to the south.
Hardwig is baffled, but he trusts the instrument. He calls it a mystery and decides they'll follow the new shoreline of what he calls Harry's Island.
Which brings us to Section V and the discovery of the trail left by Saknussemm himself. And it starts with the most shocking find of the whole book, the fossil man.
Hardwig finds a perfectly preserved human skull. It has skin, teeth, hair. He identifies it as being from the Quaternary period, maybe 100,000 years old.
This was a huge deal for a novel in 1864. The idea of human beings existing that far back was still really controversial. Hardwig is ecstatic, claiming this proves prehistoric humans lived in this subterranean world.
But then Henry finds something else. A rusty steel dagger. Not from the Stone Age. It's from a much more recent human.
And Hardwig connects the dots. Someone used this dagger to carve into the rock. They search the wall and they find it. The initials AS carved into a granite tablet at the entrance to a dark tunnel.
Ernest Saknussemm. He was real. His journey was possible. They named the spot Cape Saknussemm. Henry is now totally on board, yelling, "Forward!"
But there's a problem. A huge granite block has fallen. and is completely blocking the passage Saknussemm used.
So Hardwigg decides to use that fulminating gun cotton they packed. They set a charge to blast the
The
obstruction.
explosion is way bigger than they expected. It causes a massive subterranean earthquake. The Central Sea rushes into the abyss they've just created, and their raft is sucked down with it.
They are thrown down a vertical gallery, losing almost all of their supplies, including all their food. They're in total darkness, rushing downward at lightning speed.
They realize they're falling down the chimney of an active volcano, first carried by boiling water and then by hot lava paste. The temperature is unbearable now, close to 190 degrees Fahrenheit.
They're starving. Henry describes the awful, paralyzing effects of extreme hunger. Hardwigg forces them to eat the last tiny scrap of food, arguing they need to be strong for whatever comes next.
And Henry starts hallucinating again. He sees that sea monster, the Ichthyosaurus, and a terrifying ape Gagans, a huge gorilla-like creature in a cave filled with gnawed bones, a total waking nightmare. But then they realize their downward fall has stopped. They're being pushed upwards. The volcano is erupting.
Hardwigg, even in this moment, is a scientist. He identifies the material around them as lava paste, heaving them up towards the crater. The only question is, which crater?
After a terrifying ascent, they're shot out of the volcano. Hans carries the other two to safety. They land on a slope, and Hardwigg is actually disappointed to be back on Earth.
But the landscape is all wrong. It's not Iceland. It's lush, Mediterranean. Olive trees, figs, vineyards.
A local child shows up and speaks Italian, and Henry realizes the volcano they were just ejected from is Stromboli, near Sicily.
The geographical feat is just staggering. They traveled 3,600 miles underground. They went in through an extinct Arctic volcano and got shot out of an active Mediterranean one.
Just incredible. The adventure ends. Hardwigg pays Hans for his 13th week of service. Hans, in his most emotional moment of the whole story, smiles.
And that final mystery, the compass. They solve it back in Hamburg. Henry checks the compass again, and Hardwigg has his final revelation. When the needle pointed north toward the southern shore, it wasn't broken.
Right. It was correctly pointing to the magnetic North Pole underground. The Earth's magnetic field deep in the crust was just oriented differently. It was only reversed relative to the surface. It was a true magnetic discovery.
So, to sum this all up for you, the learner, Hardwigg's insane determination, plus Hans's practical skill, let them disprove a fundamental theory of their time. They proved that life could thrive in these vast, electrically lit oceans deep inside the Earth.
And that's the provocative thought Verne leaves us with, isn't it? Their journey proved that scientific theory has to bow to observation. They found all this impossible life, this impossible geology. So if the Earth is full of these vast, unseen worlds beneath the crust, what other fundamental scientific truths about our planet might a second, deeper descent still disprove? Is the Earth's interior really mapped out, or is it just waiting for the next daring traveler to confirm the impossible?
Something profound to mull over. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into Verne's core. We will see you next time.